everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Maureen. Today I'm going to be sharing with you how to make this free blouse. So go ahead, grab your sewing tools, download your pattern, and get your fabric, and let's get into it. First, take the bodice piece and do stay stitching along this right angle corner here on the outer pieces and the lining pieces at 3/8 inch. Once you're done with that, you are going to work on your darts. I've outlined them in red on my blouse, and it's on the wrong side of the fabric. So go ahead and pin that now, and then we're going to take this to our machine and sew this in. You'll complete the darts on the lining and the outer pieces as well. When sewing darts, remember not to backstitch at the point of the dart. You can backstitch at the beginning if you like. I usually like to let the stitch run out at the very end, and it'll kind of knot up or link up the thread and create kind of a knot on its own. So after you sew down your darts, make sure you press them facing down or facing towards the bottom hem of your blouse. So now taking your back pattern pieces, where you're going to put these right sides together with the straight edge going down the center front, because that's where your zipper will go. So placing your back pattern pieces right sides together, you're going to place them on top of your front pattern piece, and you are going to sew this at 1/2 inch at the shoulders here. Okay, so now that you've pressed your seams open, go ahead and open out your blouse. So this is the front right here, and then this is the back right here. And so what I want you to do is take your ruler and mark 2 inches from the zipper line on your fabric. And that is where you will stop stitching. And I'll show y'all what that means here in a minute. So place your lining piece right on top of your outer piece and make sure that they match. So you want your square necklines to match perfectly, and you want your straps to match perfectly, and that rounded curve to match perfectly. And you are going to pin from this red line that we made on both the lining and the outer pieces all the way around the neckline, down the other side of the straps, and all the way to the other red marking that we made. Okay, so we are going to take this to our sewing machine, and we're going to sew this at 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way around where we pinned it. take the corners of your blouse and just clip them, but don't clip through the stitch on both sides. And then we're gonna understitch this. So go ahead and open your fabric, and you're gonna press the seam allowance to one side. I pressed it to this side, which means that we're gonna understitch all the way on the side that you have pressed the seam towards, all the way around. So now we will take this back to the ironing board and press this down so that the facing lays flat. Okay, and this is what it should look like once you've pressed it to one side. If you want to, you can add a little tag or something like that. But now we're actually gonna work on our armholes. So we're gonna open this back up. All right, so you should have pinned it, and then go ahead and take this to the sewing machine and sew it at a 1/2 inch, and we're gonna do this for both sides. And go ahead and give this some notches. Again, do not puncture through the stitches, but you just want to make this easy enough for your arm to have movement when you're wearing it out and about. Okay, so now that we've clipped in to the seam allowance and whatnot, we've got to turn it right side out. So you're literally going to take your fingers and pull the strap out as best as you can. I kind of like to fold it a little bit as it keeps coming out, because then it allows like a little piece for me to pull out like this, and then keep pulling it out. And then you'll notice that it starts to widen, which means that we're getting towards the larger piece of the blouse. Okay, perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. All right, so go back to your iron and give this a really good press. Okay, so your armholes are now closed up. I gave it a good press, and then I also understitched about this much, which is like 2.5 inches on the underside, or the, the lining part, on each of these curves here. Just like how we did earlier around the entire neckline. But again, you're only gonna go about 2.5 to 3 inches up. Because that's honestly as far as your machine will really let you go without it getting kind of sticky there with your narrow straps. All right, so now we are going to close up the sides. Okay, so what we're going to do is open up this side and open up this side. And on one continuous stitch, we're going to pin and sew right there. At a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Sew it at 1/2 inch. So now you've got a nice armhole. So go ahead and press this and we'll go back to our sewing table or our cutting table. Okay, so now we're going to move on to our bottom peplum pieces. You should have cut one on the fold for the front and then 2 pieces for the back. And this is the one of the completed ones for the back. You want the pleats to kind of mimic this right here. And so I'm going to show you exactly how I did that. So you can do notches, you can make little markings with a soluble pen. I did both so that way you guys are able to see it a little better. But what you are going to do is you are going to make your individual pleats by matching those notches or marks together like that. I will advise you that you may have to make your pleats a little bit deeper on this pattern. I certainly had to do that, and to be honest with you, that's okay because the peplum is supposed to be slightly exaggerated, so you can make them deeper if you need to, or you can add more if you need to. This is your blouse, so feel free to do whatever you like, but this is simply just a guide as to how to make those pleats. Alright, so once you're done pinning all of these, you are going to take this to your sewing machine and do a basting stitch across the top of those pleats at a 3/8 seam allowance. As a reminder, the front peplum piece should have been cut on the fold, and you can press that crease out, but you want to make sure that the pleats are meeting towards the center front of your peplum. So you'll pin them the same way and then do a basting stitch, and then this is what it should look like. Now we're going to add in our sides of the peplum, so make sure that you have the slanted sides for the sides and that the straight edges are on the center back seam right there, because that's where your zipper is going to go. So back to these again, you want them to be slanted, and because that'll give you kind of almost like that full circle skirt type waistband or waistline. And then we're going to take this to our machine and sew it at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay, you're going to attach your bottom peplum to the upper part of your blouse. So go ahead and open your lining up so that way you just have a single layer here, and put this right sides together, matching up your side seams to your ends. So once you're done attaching the peplum, go ahead and press the seam towards the bodice, and then finish this edge here. You don't have to finish the lining piece, but definitely finish this edge because this bottom half is going to be
an open seam more or less once you install your zipper. So go ahead and give your invisible zipper a good press. It's okay if your zipper is longer than your shirt. We can always cut it off because we are going to do a stitch down here at the bottom. The most important thing though is that if you do give it a good press, just make sure that the teeth and the tape are nice and straight. Unzip it, and then you're going to fold it open just like how you saw me do, and your teeth are going to be on the left side. Okay, and this tape right here, this upper part of your tape, you want that to be flush with this edge right here. And I always use my serged edge as a guide because that's usually just past the that's usually about 5/8 to a 1/2 inch from the seam edge, and it'll help make your zipper fit better. Okay, and then what I always do is, you can see that the teeth will be on the right side if you just kind of do that little test right there. So that's how you know you're kind of headed in the right direction. So go ahead, stitch down your zipper, do a basting stitch, and we'll come back to our table. One thing I did forget to mention, you can pretty much make a little marking for yourself at 4 inches from the bottom to stop the tape or stop the zipper. And so we are going to do the zipper install on the other side now. I still haven't done the official stitch on this side. This is still a basting stitch. So I just like to zip it up and zip it back down to make sure that the tape actually can go up and down. And then I do the same step. I turn it over just like this, making sure the zigzag matches that top edge of the blouse right there. So I've got my invisible foot, or my invisible zipper foot attached. This is something that I always use, highly recommend. If you have one of these attachments, go ahead and use that because it'll just make attaching zippers so much simpler. All right, so we have a really good zipper right here, and it works. Now we are going to cut this and close the seam up. Use my pinking shears for this, and I just kind of cut it right there, and then you leave this tail out. I'm actually going to cut it a little bit more. And then put some pins right here. And what you can do, I've seen different ways. I usually put like a buttonhole right in here, just like that, to kind of make a stopper. I've seen people put bias tape. Whatever you would like to do, you can do that right there. I've even seen people cut that and kind of fold it up into like a nice little triangle shape. That's always an option. But we're gonna take our regular zipper foot and do a stitch right here. So I'm attaching my button foot, and I'm also switching my settings on my machine, and I am going to do a stitch across the teeth, not through the teeth, but across the teeth, to make it so that that is going to be the stopper. All right, so now we're going to finish this edge right here. So you're gonna bring the lining out and you're gonna start at the neckline. Put a couple of pins at the neckline here. Match the raw edge of the lining to the edge of the zipper. And it's gonna cover itself, but obviously on the outside you'll see the teeth. That way you can zip it up. And you'll just pin it down, matching up those seams. And you're gonna stitch, pick up this stitch right here, sew down, pivot, and then sew down the side again. Take this corner where you started your stitch at the top of the neckline and down, and don't cut through the stitch and don't cut through the teeth, but just give that corner just a little bit of a trim. That way when you turn it right side out, it'll have a much better sharp edge. It'll look really nice and crisp. All right, and then we're gonna take this to our iron and press this. So your last step is closing your lining. So you can take this to your iron or wherever and tuck the seam allowance in, making sure that it lines up with the stitch line of the peplum, and press it and slip stitch it all the way around your bodice. And then once you're done with that, give your peplum a nice pretty hem, and you are all finished.
All right, you guys, thank you so much for watching that tutorial. Now, if you like this video and want to watch more, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. And if you're not following me already, you can follow me at Raven Maureen on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads. See you guys next time. Bye.